14th March, 1999. Kingston, Jamaica. Australia had the West Indies on the ropes once again. After Australia's stunning victory over the West Indies in their own backyard in 1995, cricket's next era had well and truly began. No longer were the West Indies the best team in the world. Australia were. And in the years that followed, they continued to prove it. The West Indies, meanwhile, were in free fall. But that advance, the seemingly inevitable march towards another dominant Australian victory, would be halted today. For a brief moment in time, the West Indies could dream once again, and pretend like it was the good old days, where they would put Australia to the sword. It would all be off the back of the incredible Brian Lara. The West Indies had been in free fall since losing to Australia in 1995, a first series defeat for them anywhere in 15 years.
And he's gone! And that's it, and it's been caught by Taylor. What a moment. The Australians running on to the ground.
The worst of it was the total humiliation in South Africa, Lara's second full series in charge. The West Indies were supposed to put on a show and be competitive on the historic tour. Instead, they got beaten all around the country and lost 5-0.
That's it. South Africa have won a comprehensive victory.
There was chaos all throughout the ranks and the fallout from that tour. Just 2 months later, they would be forced to face the best team in the world, an Australian side that had only gotten better since their heroics in the spring of 1995.
So Mark Taylor and his team, a fantastic victory here, and they're out there together just savouring the moment.
The West Indies had lost their last 6 tests in a row. It had been 7 tests since the West Indian player had scored a century. Lara himself had not scored a century in 23 months.
So Brian Lara, the first batsman at the Arnasville ground to score a Test 100.
His own returns failing with the West Indies' form. There were flashes of brilliance, but it was nowhere near enough to win anything in a struggling side. He had to step up, or there would be consequences. At the start of the series, Lara was given 2 test probation to save his job. His side promptly got trounced by Australia at Trinidad.
Collins, just a heave. West Indies' lowest total ever in Test cricket. The West Indies go 1 down in the series. A humbling defeat. An emphatic victory for Australia. 312 runs is the margin. Where do they go from here?
And so, it would be a trip to Jamaica to save some pride and save his job. Jamaica, the most hostile place to Lara's West Indies in the region. The last test in Jamaica had been abandoned because of unsafe conditions, and Jamaica's own Courtney Walsh had been passed over the captaincy for Lara. No place in the Caribbean was as hostile to Lara and the West Indies Cricket Board as Kingston, but ever the man for the occasion, Lara picked this moment for greatness. It was an innings of pure majesty, almost faultless. Lara came in at 5 for 2, and it was soon 56 for 4.
Give it out, and he's bowled him! Inside edge, trying to slash it away through backward point.
But then, supported by a struggling Jimmy Adams, the pair ran away with it. On the 14th of March 1999, the pair batted all day. Not a single wicket fell to the Australians. For most of the innings, the closest Lara came to being dismissed was a close run-out call to get to his 100.
Umpire have to call for the third umpire. So Steve Buckner has called for the third umpire. The crowd has been invaded, but we don't know whether Brian Lara has got his century or not. Brilliant piece of fielding, and he may have just made it.
Well, if you can't see it, David, obviously that's the only shot.
So there's 100 to Brian Lara. His 11th Test 100, his first since June in 1997.
He was mobbed by the once hostile crowd after reaching 100 and 200. The West Indies would go on to win the match by 10 wickets. One of the greatest series of all time would be underway.
They win by 10 wickets. A happy man, Brian Lara. Happy West Indians, not only in the stands and in the dressing room, but also all across.
It would be another majestic Lara innings that would culminate in one of the greatest test match finishes of all time at Bridgetown, and that magical 1-wicket victory.
For the West Indies. The West Indies team run onto the oval, and one of the great results in Test match history has just been witnessed here at the Kensington Oval.
The West Indies were now in the lead against Australia, the first time they had taken the lead in a series against Australia since winning the final test at Perth in 1992. However, it would be a false dawn. Another Lara century would not be enough to prevent defeat in the final test in Antigua.
Bring up the 100, he won't even look for two. So Brian Lara brings up his third consecutive century, 82 balls, making it the third fastest ever by a West Indian.
And the series would finish all square at 2-2. The next time the teams faced off in Australia in the winter of 2000-2001, the West Indies would be annihilated 5-0.
Should be it. And that's a wonderful victory by a very good cricket team. 5-0 victory to Australia.
They would never again come remotely close to so much as drawing a series with Australia. For that brief few weeks at Jamaica and Bridgetown in the spring of 1999, the West Indies could dream again. All off the back of the magnificent Brian Charles Lara.